Russell Westbrook to the Sacramento Kings. And what about Jonathan Kuminga potentially landing in Sacramento as well? I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. Right now, about 70% of you watching, you're not subscribed. Let's fix that. It's a busy time of year. Hit that subscribe button. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. Donnie, Sacramento looking to make some big moves here as we get into the heart of the NBA offseason. And I think they certainly need to. This Kings roster needs to make a number of changes before we get to next season.
Yeah, I'm sure they would like to make a number of changes for sure. The team, I mean, there's been rumors about them trading some of these guys and stuff like that, and we'll see what ultimately they decide to do. But I think that for where they want to be, which is, a competitive team in the playoffs, there's a lot of work to be done.
So looking at this roster, I mean, they very clearly, you've got Zach LaVine, you've got Sabonis, you've got DeRozan, Malik Monk. You need a point guard, which is ironic given that they traded Tyrese Halliburton and De'Aaron Fox, but they very clearly need a point guard. Russell Westbrook, Tyus Jones, two guys that have been mentioned as potential players to fill that role for them. And then Jonathan Kuminga, maybe a target in a sign and trade situation. Let's start with the point guards, though. Fellow free agents, this is via Sam Amick of The Athletic. Fellow free agents Tyus Jones and Russell Westbrook are known to be options that the Kings are considering. Free agency formally begins at 6 Eastern time on Monday. Beyond the point guard vacancy, league sources say the Kings are open for business when it comes to discussing the various possibilities on their roster. So, again, not a surprise that they're open for business, but what do you think about Tyus Jones or Russell Westbrook being the guy to fill the point guard role in Sacramento?
Yeah, I think you've got two very different players, when you're looking at these two guys. There was also some reporting about a few days ago about them looking at maybe Schroeder or Russell, but ultimately them wanting a point guard on the team. But if it's going to be between these two guys, or these two guys are the most likely, I mean, within reason with what we can expect from them this year, I do like the acquisition of either of them. But I think you've got I don't want to say much, but substantially, I guess, same thing, higher ceiling with Russ. But you may have a lower floor too. And
sure.
I just wonder if, because he's so volatile, I just wonder if maybe they want more consistency. But part of me wants to see Russ in a presumably starting high usage ball role again, just to see what he can do. Because I know Russ can still, it's in there somewhere. He may get a few turnovers, but I know he can get you, 8 assists, 17, 18 points, 6 rebounds. And for the Kings, that may be mostly what they need. And at this point, he'd also be a really fun player for them to have, somebody that the organization and the fan base can get behind and enjoy watching. And then again, Tyus, he's not going to be able to give you that statistical volume, but maybe he's just a steady choice.
And I think both players are defensively deficient to a degree. Now, I thought Russ, give the man credit, I thought he did better defensively.
I think you can get much more out of Russ. He's got the tools. Tyus is undersized. Russ is bigger, stronger. If he locks in, he can, I think, be okay. But he's not going to be a lockdown guy or anything. But he can be all right.
Exactly. And really what you need is a defensive-oriented guard in Sacramento. This is where this is all interconnected, and this is why we need to put the puzzle pieces together here, because when a report like this comes out, and you're right, Donnie, there was the report the other day about Dennis Schroeder potentially being a target for the Sacramento Kings. Well, Dennis Schroeder would be most likely, based on the reporting, a full mid-level exception, or at least a good chunk of the full mid-level exception type of guy. Now, Tyus Jones, Russell Westbrook would not be that, I would assume, anyway. If they're signing with the Sacramento Kings, they would not be full mid-level exception guys. And the reason why guys like this may be an option is because the Sacramento Kings may need to use some of that optionality on a sign and trade for Jonathan Kuminga. So if you're taking back Jonathan Kuminga, are you adding some salary that way to your roster? You'd be hard capping yourself at the first apron. You might make it a little bit more difficult to use that full mid-level exception, which is why you would need to make sure that you have other options. And who knows, Dennis Schroeder may have other suitors besides Sacramento, but the Kings do make sense as a landing spot for Schroeder. They need a starting point guard, but if they're going to do something to get, let's say, Jonathan Kuminga, and right now they currently sit $25 million below the first apron. They've got plenty of room there, but depending on how much salary they take back, depending on what else they do, they may need to have a cheaper option available at the point guard spot. So that's where things get a little interesting for Sacramento. I don't hate Russell Westbrook or Tyus Jones. I would feel better if the Kings do figure out a way to do Westbrook and Schroeder, Jones and Schroeder, or something like that. But if they are trying to loop in a Jonathan Kuminga sign and trade, that may make things a little bit tricky. So Sam Amick also had a Jonathan Kuminga sign and trade here. Do you like Jonathan Kuminga's fit in all of this? I keep coming back to this, Donnie. Where is the defense? Where is the defense coming from? Because Jonathan Kuminga is not a great defensive player, not known as one. Neither is Russell Westbrook, and certainly not Tyus Jones, probably the weakest of those three guards that we're talking about when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. Keon Ellis reportedly not going anywhere. Same thing with Keegan Murray with Sacramento. They at least can give you something there, but DeMar DeRozan, Sabonis, Levine, these guys are not defensive players either. I feel, is Jonathan Kuminga just more of the same? Is he a step towards something? I'm having a hard time figuring out exactly what it is that Sacramento is trying to accomplish with this team.
Yeah, I'd have to imagine that they're, for one, I think that Kuminga, again, somebody else that has the tools athletically to be a solid defensive player. Who knows if he's able to put that together, on a different organization in a different way. I don't know. But there's that. There's the potential. But I'd have to imagine that for the Kings, they may be looking to flip some of these guys because there's just too much redundancy on this roster anyway. I'd have to imagine that maybe it's DeMar DeRozan or, I don't imagine it's Levine, but maybe Monk, some of these guys where they try to flip them for better fitting pieces on the roster. And that may be the ultimate decision that they make because there's a like I said, redundancy, but also there's a glut of wing players. I just don't know where if you're targeting Kuminga, where he even fits into the mix, because he's gonna want, if he's trying to go there and via sign and trade or something, he's gonna want to be assured he's going to get what he couldn't get from Golden State, which is a starting role. They're high usage, 35 minutes a night. You're gonna put the ball in his hands and give him opportunities in a way that he wasn't able to get consistently in Golden State, and so you'd have to clear the room for that to happen. So that may be a thing. And maybe that means that they have to move on from somebody like Murray, who they didn't want to move on from, or whatever the case is. But I just think there's a big glut of wing players on this roster overall.
Now, if you were the Golden State Warriors, say, and you're doing a sign and trade with the Sacramento Kings for Jonathan Kuminga, would you
grabbing Murray back?
They would definitely love to have Murray, but if I'm the Kings, I also wouldn't want to trade him.
Yeah.
Would the Warriors be interested in DeRozan?
They shouldn't be.
They shouldn't be. No. I know. But would that be preferable to losing Kuminga or signing him to a new contract? The Warriors, when you're in a sign and trade situation like that, so you don't always get to dictate exactly what it is that you're getting back in a deal or get the best offer. But it would be great to get Keegan Murray back, no question, if you're Golden State. I just don't know that they could get there in that kind of a deal.
Yeah, maybe they target Monk. I think maybe Monk's a more realistic choice and would fit better. And I know they tried Schroeder, but I think Monk would fit better than Schroeder did on that team, just due to the play style choices. But if they went for DeRozan, I mean, maybe DeRozan would have to be a guy that comes off the bench because I can't with him. Green. It's the same problem that they currently have. It's just DeRozan is a better scorer, more proven. They're also getting older, less athletic. So I don't know if that's something they should be pinpointing, but with the deficiencies they already have in terms of spacing and stuff like that. But maybe if DeRozan's okay with coming off of the bench, or maybe they're able to get DeRozan back and then flip him into something else. But for me, if I were them and I was doing this, obviously Murray, even though you have to extend him, but I think Monk would make a lot of sense for them organization.
Yeah, I think he would make a lot of sense and be an interesting target in that kind of a sign and trade. Donnie, I'll tell you this. I know we're mostly Kings focused here on this episode, but I hope that Sacramento, whatever it is they do here, if it is Kuminga, if it's Westbrook, if it is, there needs to be, I need to see what is the plan? What is this team? What type of basketball do they want to play? What's the identity for this team going to be? Because I don't think they've had that in the wake of the Aaron Fox trade. And that's not necessarily an indictment of them. Sometimes teams do struggle to find their way after a big trade like that. What is it you're trying to build here now in Sacramento? I want to get a sense of what the identity is going to be of this team moving forward, because right now, whatever the identity is right now, this isn't it. This is not it. And they
their guys
need
want
to
to know
figure out some
too,
changes.
right? Like Sabonis was saying the same thing. Like their guys want to know what's
Yeah,
happening
absolutely.
with this team. So that's, I think, what's next for this team is to pick a lane, determine what you're going to ultimately wind up doing. Nobody wants to be in the middle, unfortunately, aside from maybe the Kings organization at this point, which is understandable given how long their drought was, like we always say. But for the players, if you're Sabonis, if you're Levine, I mean, Levine's kind of, he's kind of in a spot where he doesn't really have much of a choice, but maybe Sabonis can ask out or something like that winds up happening. I don't know. But yeah, I think they need to pick a side and determine what they're going to do if they're going to try to lead into the rebuild. And I think that they've got some of these guys like a DeMar, like we've talked about throughout the video, that could potentially be somebody that another team would be interested in taking on. I mean, he's only got one more year on the books at 25, and that looks like it's not even fully guaranteed as well. So I think he's a team that a team could or a player that a team could buy on, and maybe that's something that they can do to help this organization and this team fit better and move forward.
Well, in any event, we know change needs to come in Sacramento. We'll see what they're ultimately able to get done here. But Jonathan Kuminga, maybe a target for them. And then at the guard position, Russell Westbrook, Tyus Jones, maybe Dennis Schroeder. They've got to make some significant changes here in Sacramento. But everybody, thank you so much for joining. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the channel. We're going to keep you up to date on everything going on in what's been a very, very busy NBA off season. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.